when you stop learning, you stop growing. When you stop growing, you die. So keep learning, keep developing. Try not to repeat mistakes.
Hello and welcome to the Stroke It podcast. I'm Jenny Townsend, your host. Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited for you to be inspired to live your life fully, to take ownership of your time, your schedule, and your life, but most importantly, learn and grow and develop personally and professionally. Myself and others are going to share life lessons that we've learned through leadership, through heartache, through pain, through struggles, and we'll be sharing some success stories with you as well. Super eager for you to dive in, learn, and grow. And once again, just take ownership of your life today. Hello, and welcome to the Stroke It podcast. I'm Jenny Townsend, your host. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Not only do I have a fantastic guest, it is Thanksgiving. And before we kick off, I want to take a moment and I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. Thank you for your reviews. Thank you for sharing. I also want to thank our amazing team that works behind the scenes. I could never have this podcast if it wasn't for them. So I want to thank Kaylee, Jackie, Try, and the whole team at Better Than Rich. I also want to give a huge shout out to my mentor, Jamie, who is joining me here today. Not only has he had a huge impact in my life, he wrote the foreword for the book Stroke It, and I'm really excited for him to share his wisdom, his experience. He's all about people, so he's the perfect guest to launch season 3 of the Stroke It podcast. Jamie, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for asking me.
I'm so excited to talk with you today. So before I ask you a couple questions, I want to just give the listeners a little bit more about you, and then I'm going to find out what season of life you're in, and I want you to share that with them. So for all of you that are tuning in, Jamie is from Nokomis, Florida. He is the vice president of the Wrench Group, LLC, a role he stepped into in 2022 after serving as president of Cool Today, Plumbing Today, and Energy Today, which they have been servicing my business for years. With over 40 years of experience in the service trade industry, Jamie has worked his way up through operations, call centers, warehousing, and ultimately landing a senior leadership position. He has overseen acquisitions and regional operations for a major home service company. In 2004, Jamie founded his own venture by acquiring the company that would become Cool Today, expanding its operations from Sarasota to Tampa and Fort Myers. And for any of you baseball fans, there's a baseball stadium with his name on it. Beyond his business accomplishments, Jamie is deeply involved in the community, serving on the boards of several nonprofit organizations. He is the past chair of Sarasota Boys and Girls Club, the Oslo Repertory Theater, and Meals on Wheels Plus of Manatee County. He's also a chairman of the CEO Forum, which he brought me into. Thank you so much. I love that group. In August of 2024, Jamie was appointed by Governor DeSantis to sit on the State College of Florida Manatee Sarasota District Board of Trustees. And once again, I'm excited to welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So lots of accomplishments. Tell us what season of life that you're in and give us a little bit more insight of what we can expect to learn from you today.
Well, I sold my business in 2019 to the Wrench Group, which I'm still a part of and a stockholder. So I'm still connected to the business, but I'm not operating the business anymore. So, that kind of frees up a lot of time. And I've always was busy in the community when I was running a business. I was involved in all those organizations you're talking about as well. So it's amazing how what people think retirement is and what retirement could be for some people. How's retirement? That was the first thing I hear. How's retirement? How's retirement? I'm not retired. I'm just at a stage of life that I'm busy in different ways. So my stage of life is financial freedom, just me and the missus together, doing our adventures, figuring out how to help our kids through this crazy world that we live in, enjoying my grandchildren, making sure stay healthy, invest in relationships, reinvest in relationships, and just, enjoy life.
Right. It's one of the things I know a lot of people say when they get retired. How did I work when I got, you're so busy doing all these other things as well. And you were doing all those things while you were working. So you're just staying just as busy.
Staying just as busy. It's amazing how your time slots fill it. I'll leave in the morning and I'll come back in the afternoon, a couple hours, and I'll leave it again in the evening. And it's kind of like I was doing when I was working, but I'm just going to board meetings and foundation meetings and networking and doing some mentoring still. I'm mentoring several people. And I really get a charge out of that.
Yeah. Well, you've been an amazing mentor for me. So thank you so much. For those that don't know, Jamie and I started working together over 10 years ago.
Over 10 years ago. I think it was 2012, 2011, something like that.
When I was with the cancer organization as well. And I remember when I was telling you I was going to start my music school, you're like, what are you going to do? And then you came and I showed you a spreadsheet and I was like, it's membership based, and you leaned in, you're like, oh, this is like the perfect business. And thank you so much for all the coaching. And
Well, thank you, because I learned something. You don't have to have knowledge of a technical thing, which I'm not a technician, by the way, in order to run a great business. So
mhm,
don't let a barrier like that. Gee, I'm not a musician. I can't run a business, a
mhm,
music business. No, you're probably better suited to run a music business
mhm,
because you're not a musician,
100%.
and it gave you a strategic advantage. Just
Right.
like I was never an air conditioning tech or a plumber, but I learned the business and I ran the business, which
Right.
gave me a strategic advantage.
Yeah. And you focused on the people as well, which has been super important to your success, and to your company. I also wanted to highlight the fact that you're in this role of retirement and you're doing all these things that you love and the financial freedom. How did you get there as far as like success, dedication, focus? So if
Hmm.
someone is listening today and they own a company or they're thinking about starting a business and financial freedom is
Mhm.
the ultimate why and the goal, what would be something that you would encourage
Well,
them?
that's a great question. And I'm going to tie it into your book in a way.
Okay.
First, I had to be confident in myself. I had to
Hmm.
stroke myself,
Right.
as you put it so
Yeah.
eloquently. I had to be confident in myself.
Hmm.
I had to say, I believe I could do this, right? And then as a kid growing up in New York, very poor, I always had dreams of doing something different and being bigger than what I was allowed to be as a young child, because
Okay.
my father was very, you stay within your lane, work your 40 hours a week,
Hmm.
squeak by in life. And I always thought there's more to life than that. I was the first one to go to college in the family, which was a big opportunity, and I was the first one to drop out of college the second year, and so that opened up other doors, and that
Right.
introduced me into the trades. And as I developed my career in the trades in accounting, I thought I was going to be an accountant, and it ends up that I really enjoyed operations more than accounting. The part of accounting I liked was dealing with the bookkeepers and the payables clerks, and I liked the people side of the accounting. I didn't
Right.
necessarily like the accounting part of the accounting.
Right.
Um, so it opened up lots of doors for me in as much as I could start my own business. And I joined a company that bought businesses. So I learned how to buy the businesses, and then I learned how to run the businesses.
Hmm.
And then I bought N&M, an old company here in Sarasota, started in 1963, in 2004, as you stated. And I believed in myself. And most important, thank you, Julie, my wife. She believed in me,
Right.
right? And if you are a partnership, you have to have somebody who believes in you.
Flying
So
your flag,
it
having
starts
your
with
back.
believing in
Yeah.
yourself,
Right.
having somebody, if you're in a partner relationship, having them believe in you, and then s- putting a plan together.
Right.
I talked to you about this when I mentored you.
Yes.
You got
Yes.
to, I used to call it the 3-5-10 with
Hmm.
you.
Hmm.
I had the 5-10-15.
Right.
And that was my planning. I planned it out, and I was going to hit these marks.
And you did. And you shared that with your team. You actually had a 20-year, I think,
I had
too.
a 20-year too. I didn't make it to the 20-year. Thank goodness. It was the 15-year. The 20-year was would have got me to 63.
Okay.
I was lucky enough to get to 58. Yes, and then have a purpose
Hmm.
and share the purpose, right? And in my case, it was a mission statement and a set of values,
Right.
right? And it was about people and relationships, lifelong relationships,
Hmm.
if you remember. And that's what I built the emotional side of the business on. So believe in yourself first, put a plan together, a business plan, which is numbers,
Right.
but people don't fall in love with numbers.
Right.
People fall in love with ideals. People fall in love with philosophies.
Hmm.
Have that for your people. And that's the underarching principles, if you will, of driving to those numbers.
Yeah, I love that. So I just watched the Martha Stewart documentary. Have
On
you?
Netflix,
On Netflix.
I haven't watched it yet.
Okay. So one of the things that I love that she said is she believed in herself,
Hmm.
constantly believed in herself. And that is really what made her so successful. Even when other people didn't, she believed in herself. Ellen Rohr, who I just met.
Yes,
So when
Ellen.
she was speaking at this conference that I was at, one of the things that she said is that I believe in myself so much that I'm willing to bet anything on myself as well. And I feel like that belief is so important. And I know that I couldn't have done what I did if I didn't believe solely that what I was going to be doing was going to make a huge impact.
Uh huh.
And then sharing that vision with so many people and getting them to buy into that, where they did want to support and would back me and would be there right with me, which is so important, I
Well,
think,
you
too.
got me to believe in you when you first came up with the idea, and then we started talking about the business
Right.
plans, and then the many times we met through your ups and downs in growing the business.
Hmm.
I told you this before. I said, Jenny, you are the pure entrepreneur And I believe in you because you believe in yourself
Right.
so much.
Right. Well, I do. And thank you for that. Thank you for believing in me and
Mhm.
my husband too. Like the fact that he was like, just quit your job. Who cares what these people think? And just go start that music school that I told him about on our first date. So, which ended up like coming back to haunt us. But
Yeah.
anyways, so, okay, cool. Well, thank you for that introduction as
Uh-huh.
well and sharing that great knowledge. For anyone that's listening, belief is so, so important. That actually was our company word this year. We pick a
Mhm.
word for the company every single year. We pick it at our MCAs. Everybody
Mhm.
contributes. We create a focus word,
That's great.
focus wheel for it. And then anytime we can use believe, we do. And
Mhm.
then if I see gifts or I see like a sign, I'm like, ooh, who can I buy this for? So we
Right.
actually like incorporate the whole thing. We've had quality. And on Friday, we'll pick another word for the new
Okay.
year. So
Great.
anyway, so okay. So I always love to start with the love languages, which was the
Mhm.
book that David bought me while we were separated,
Mhm.
which kind of inspired the whole book, Stroke It. How familiar are you with the love languages?
I am. I am very familiar. I know mine. I know my wife's.
Okay. So articulate that. How were you exposed to the love languages and how are they impacting your life?
We were actually going to counseling for a
Okay.
period of time, and the counselor used a love languages book to help us understand ourselves first,
Mm-hmm.
and then understand each other and each other's differences. And my love languages are acts of service and words of affirmation, which I didn't think would fall into my love language.
Right.
I didn't think I needed words of affirmation because
Mhm.
but I realized that I do,
Right.
and I enjoy acts of service. And my wife's, so it tells you how different we are. There's 5 of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And usually you have some overlapping.
Of course. Yeah.
Well, I have my 2 and she has her 2. So out of the 5, we have 4 of them. Is quality time and physical touch.
Okay.
So that opened up our eyes to a lot of things, saying, well, you know what attracted us in the beginning will be challenging over time because
Mm-hmm.
it's different.
Right.
We have to understand our differences.
100%. And what you guys think of each one. Like David's was quality time. But I
Hmm.
thought quality time was us going to the fundraisers together, him coming to the music compound events. And I was like, we're in the same house, we're cooking dinner together. But his quality time was intimate conversations where I was solely focused on him, not talking to everybody else in the room.
Boom. They
I
are
know.
exactly alike, identical. Yeah. Yes. And, I was very involved in the community, and
Right.
I'll say this in a nice way. I drug my wife to a lot of these
Me
things.
as well.
And, for her, it was challenging because she didn't know anybody. And
Mhm.
I was, doing my
The
thing.
man of the hour.
Yeah. And words of affirmation, enjoying those. Right.
Right. Me too.
And, but for her, that wasn't quality time.
Mhm.
Quality time for her is at home, doing things together. I mean, she even enjoys like things like gardening. I can't stand gardening, but if I did some gardening for a few hours, that is quality time. We may not be
Mhm.
saying a word to each other.
But you're out there with her.
I'm with
You're
her.
present.
I'm present.
That's the
Exactly.
thing. I know I feel like my love languages have changed slightly, but I was words of affirmation. I feel like a lot of the CEOs that I talk to, a lot of their love languages are affirmation, words of affirmation.
That's interesting.
And I think for me personally, it's like I don't have a boss necessarily telling me I do a great job. So I feel like I maybe need it more. When I was growing up, my parents really didn't tell me I was a great kid or a great job. They just expected me to get out there and work, and they just expected me to make good grades. So I don't know if that's maybe why as an adult I need words of affirmation. But most of the CEOs that I interview are words of affirmation.
Well, men kind of need words of affirmation
Mm-hmm.
more so than women. Women like compliments. Now I'm going to separate the two.
Yeah.
Right. Words of affirmation doesn't necessarily mean, hey, honey, you're beautiful or anything. It is an affirming term, but
Right.
I think that's a compliment,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That words of affirmation is something that has more qualitative, right,
Right.
internal things,
100%.
and men kind of desire that, right? Because men are, they're a lot weaker than their out exterior
Right.
leads them on, especially men in power.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a powerful position as a man, sometimes gets a little lonely, right? Because
It
the
happens to our
employees,
women too, just so
okay,
you know.
yeah, but women are better at expressing,
Of course.
right?
Yes. We'll tell
Uh,
people what we need.
Exactly. And men will just direct people and not necessarily, and they're the last ones to look for mentors and the last ones to look for coaches.
Yeah.
But once they find them, they embrace them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we need words of affirmation. I really thought it was a sign of weakness, but it is a sign of strength.
100%. And speaking about the mentors, I know so many men do need mentors, but they're so apprehensive to reach out or put themselves in uncomfortable situations. Like men I know that could use someone to guide them, to mentor them, to expose them to people, or to have a room of men that have the conversations that they want to have. If there's men out there listening, how encourage them to get into those rooms, find the mentors. What would be your advice for them?
My advice would be, big word for me in leadership. Mature leadership is about self-awareness. Men are challenged with self-awareness, because self-awareness is really stepping outside yourself and really taking inventory of the things that you're doing right, not doing right, need to do well, need to do better. Personal relationships, relationships with your employees, relationships with your stakeholders. Men are terrible at that self-awareness piece. And what happens is, maybe it's blocked by ego, maybe it's blocked by being burned a few times. I'm not really sure. But men struggle with that. They have trouble asking for help. Historically have trouble asking for directions.
Right.
So if you become more self-aware and say, okay, I need that help, then you got to let the trust kick in. You have to find somebody, seek them out, share with them, find the right mentor. And you might get burned once or twice. You might find somebody who you think is a mentor and they don't engage. Usually they disengage from you, right? And they leave you hanging. So that leaves you again with trust issues. But keep looking. And once you find the right mentor, coach, whatever you want to call it, you will accelerate the learning process
100%
at a rate that you could not have done on your own.
100%. And I feel like the confidence booster, and then they'll tend to believe in themselves more, which goes back to what you were saying at the very beginning. So when you think of some of those organizations that they can be part of, or they could go to connect with men, can you think of any that would come off the top of your tongue? I'm trying to think of like Rotary, like things like Rotary or things like that. Where would men go to find male mentors or find the community?
Okay. First, there's a couple of local ones. I told you about the Suncoast CEO Forum, right? And if you meet qualifications for owning or running, you don't have to own a business, run the business. You can connect. They put you in round tables, which is a mixture of men and women, but it's a great place to share your challenges, right? It's a safe place. Vistage is also one that, has some qualitative aspects to it. There's also lots of, like, for instance, traction coaches could be great mentors if you find the right traction coach. Right? Because if you study traction, it's the EOS system. You can find an EOS coach, right? That helps you not only implement the system, but they also become your coach. And sometimes, honestly, you may need a couple of different mentors. You may need a mentor specific for, like, say, processes, operations, but then you may need a emotional health coach. Okay. Because it's an interesting dynamic I found in businesses. Today, small business, big business, they all have access to the same resources. 25 years ago, big business had all the advantage. A small business couldn't even afford a website. Right. Big business could afford a website. They controlled the internet. When Google came out, they controlled all the Google page search. They controlled all social media. Today, the field has been leveled. But yet, in the same business, in the same industry, you have some companies absolutely struggling to make it, and you have other companies are dominating their marketplace. They all have the same access to software, same access to people, same access to equipment or supplies or materials, same access to capital. What's the difference? It is the leader. And a lot of times it's not training or skills, it's emotional and mental capabilities. They go out and find the answers. And the people attract them like moths to a flame, because they have that emotional balance and that mental balance. So if you can uncover your weaknesses in those areas, and you're smart enough to copy and paste some great processes, you will be successful.
Yeah, 100%. So the book you're mentioning, Traction, I just finished reading that a couple months ago. And one of my coaches, they're training us on the EOS system right now. And I will say, I've been emotionally drained this year from running the company. And a lot of it has to do with success, but it also has to do with like the investment that I'm making. I feel like I'm cash poor with our expansion, everything else like that. And then also I've spent a lot of people trying to time developing the people that just can't get out of their own way. So that's why I'm building that relationship with the EOS coach, so that we can start building that. But talking about the mentors and outgrowing them, I started with you, and then I also started with a guy named Dennis, and he did all the financial stuff. And I was able to get my loans and stuff because of the way that he helped me with the business plan and the financials. And then we didn't work together. And then I started working with another Dave, and then I was working with Mike. I mean, you've always been consistent.
Mhm.
And I think mentors are key, but you do outgrow them, or you need them for different things. Like for
Correct.
you, you've been personally coaching and professionally coaching me.
Mhm.
Obviously, you were CEO of a company, you were married, you had children.
Mhm.
I'm married, I have no children. My husband and I are dinks, which I
Mhm.
absolutely love, so we can travel.
Right.
So,
Another commonality we have.
yeah. So anyway, so I definitely think mentors are crucial to the success but I do know that men do struggle with it. So thanks for putting that out there. Okay, so let's start talking about the different chapters of the Stroke It Guide. How do you take care of yourself so you can be a really great leader and you can transform the lives, impact the company, which actually impacts the bottom line as well, and allows you that financial freedom that you're at today?
Well, I stroke myself in just waking up and trying to do something better today that I didn't do yesterday, whether it be bike a little further because I'm a road cyclist, or a little faster on the Peloton, or a little bit more KWs in an hour kilowatts. So I try to exceed previous goals. I always set some goals for myself and just try to push myself past it. It's just my way of challenging myself. I
Are
really
those
enjoy that.
mental goals and like health goals?
The health goals, I have health goals, which is exercising.
Yeah.
I do have mental goals. I like to really read business and what's going on in the financial world and the political world. But I also try to read a book a quarter, and I'd like to get it. I'm not I'm an avid reader, but I
Okay.
like to get through a book a quarter.
Okay.
And between that helps me mentally, right? And
Right.
it helps me connect with whatever's going on. It's not fiction. It's always business related
Right.
or relational
Same.
related. I just don't do the fiction stuff. So physically, I'm always challenging myself to hit the next barrier. I've done 100-mile bike rides. I'm looking at doing this ride across the U.S. with a buddy of mine. But
Okay.
I told him I don't have time. It's like a 7-week ride from Canada to New Mexico. I said, I
But
could
you're
probably
retired.
yeah, but I'm busy. I said I could do 3 weeks. I'll do like 1,500 miles.
Okay.
That would be a big accomplishment because at my age, I'm 63. I'm looking ahead and saying every year it's going to be harder to do that.
Right.
Right.
100%.
And I really have certain goals I had a goal to hike Machu Picchu this year.
Which you did.
Which I did.
Cheers
right?
to
I
you.
didn't do
That's
the 3-day
amazing.
hike because, again, that's time. I did the 1-day hike, but that 1-day hike was pretty hard to do. And that was always one of my goals, is to hike
Okay.
Machu Picchu. I'd like to hike the Dolomites,
Yeah.
to do some hiking in the Dolomites. I'm always setting these goals, whether it be
Okay.
tied to travel or home, personally, just for the physicality of it. And then on the, as far as, stroking myself, reading, taking in information. I love taking in information.
Okay. Now, have you always been like that, or did someone inspire you to really take ownership of that mindset and really set yourself up for success in the morning so that you can be better for other people and for yourself? Or did that come like after something happened in your life, or like how long have you been doing that? Because I feel like if someone was listening today and they want to have what you have, the financial freedom, and they want to, read a book per quarter, I feel like sometimes people just keep talking that they want to do that, but they don't actually do it. So what would be some words of encouragement that you could give them to start living like that?
You have to just do it. When I was growing up, I was always an early riser. I know people sleep in these days. I think that is an epidemic. I think people staying up late and sleeping in late is an epidemic.
Yeah.
Because I was never allowed to do that because of how I was disciplined. I always was in bed by, a reasonable time.
Right.
But at 5:30, 6 a.m. every morning to go to school, go to college. I took the early courses in college. I had a little struggle there, but I'll admit I made a mistake. But I got my act together.
It takes some of us some time.
I tell this to my kids and my nephews, you won't accomplish anything sleeping till noon.
No.
Period. The world is moving from morning till night. The world that's moving from night to morning is not worth moving with. You could party once in a while. I get it.
Yeah.
But that world, nothing's happening in that world.
Right. Do you feel like you are getting up early because you're fueled and you're just naturally high and you love what you're doing?
love what I'm doing doesn't mean occupation-wise.
Right.
I love getting up early in the morning, and we live in a wonderful state in
Your
Florida.
and your views are beautiful where
And
you're at.
I live on a bay, but even when I lived in the woods, I
Mhm.
enjoyed getting up early and doing something, right? It's something that at 63, I feel like I'm still 43.
Yeah.
And I think when I'm 73, I'll still feel younger. And
Mhm.
eventually your body just says, okay, dude, I don't care how early you get up.
Right.
You're 83 years old.
Mhm,
You only can do
mhm.
so much, right?
Right.
I'll be napping at 2, but I'm still going to get up early.
And still
You
get on
gotta
your bike or do some kind of
do
activity
something.
that fuels you.
Walk, do something. Carpe diem, carpe diem,
Yeah.
carpe diem.
100%. I don't usually set an alarm. My body just naturally wakes up between 5 and 6:30, but I also go to bed by between 9 and 10. But I just like wake up ready to go. But I think it's because I'm passionate about what I'm doing. I love life. I feel like I'm free from a lot of things that really aren't weighing me down. And
Right.
I don't suffer from depression. I don't suffer from a lot of things or a lot of anxiety, which I have in the past. But in this current stage that I'm in, I'm not there. And
Anxiety is a very common word these days.
mhm,
I don't know if it was something that was always an epidemic in our society and it was untreated,
mhm.
or it's just become amplified through things like smartphones and social media, et cetera, et cetera. But anxiety could be your absolute worst enemy, and I've seen it paralyze people. Paralyzes people with indecision. It paralyzes people with bad decisions. It paralyzes people in relationships. Anxiety is something that you have to get under control.
100%. I just had this lady, actually, her name is Elle. I want to bring her to the area, and she focuses on pressure free stress living. And it's all about when your body goes into that stress mode, it's triggered and how to reduce the anxiety to where you can get back on. And she's healed people because anxiety is like, I know people that suffer from it so bad they're actually like sick
Yeah.
and like, or they just cannot make a decision to save their life. Like literally they'll die
Yes.
because they have so much anxiety about making a decision, which I struggle with because I'm a let's make a decision. Let's own it. Let's
We
go.
have trouble understanding that
I
because
really do.
we do such a good job controlling.
Mhm.
When and when you're dealing with yourself or in a relationship or even especially in business, your mind sometimes has to control your heart.
Mhm.
Even in a relationship, I know everything you say, well, love with your heart. But you gotta use your mind to control how you love because things come out the wrong way, said the wrong way, and you have to have control. Anxiety, you lose all control.
100%. It reminds me of a conversation I just had with my husband this morning. Like I was trying to express to him that I wanted him to be somewhere with me, and he thought I was being so mean the way I was saying it. I was like, no, no, I'm trying to say that I'd want you to be there with me.
Mhm.
And he's like, the way you articulate sometimes, the way that you say it is not what you really mean. And I was like, this is why I have Kaylee, who used to work with me, who actually still works with me because she could just translate. I need to become better at translating. Follow some of the tips in this book.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
well, speaking of relationships and spouses, I want to lean into that.
Mhm.
And I would love for you to talk a little bit about your relationship with you and Julie, which love Julie. She's amazing. And I know she's been a rock for you as well. And every experience I've had with her has been amazing. So even though you guys are opposites, but you've been able to raise children, businesses, she's had your back. Talk to us a little bit about how you've been able to foster that relationship and how you guys have got it to where you are today.
Well, all relationships have challenges.
Yeah.
Whether it be with your spouse, your kids, your parents, in a workplace,
Right.
they have their ups and downs. And the most important relationship in your life is your partner,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And you have to invest in it. You have to be intentional
Right.
with this relationship,
Right.
and you have to really lean in when you don't feel like leaning in. My wife, we had specific what you might call traditional roles.
Okay.
She ran the house.
Right.
I ran the business,
Mm-hmm.
and our lives were intertwined. We had 3 children together. I have a child from another marriage,
Okay.
almost your age. God, somebody hit me. And she believed in me and what I did
Mm-hmm.
in my occupation, and I absolutely believed in her and how she was running the house.
Household.
And when she said, "Hey, I need you for this," I dropped it and did. So you have to prioritize.
100%.
But we didn't really we fell in love very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we had a courtship,
Right.
and it was rocky at first.
Right.
And then once we became committed, we were married 31 years ago. Um, that relationship's been, up and to the right, if there was a
Right.
graph, up and to the
Right.
right with zigzags.
Right.
Life's about ups and downs.
Right.
And when I built the business, it was like we were all hands on deck,
Right.
right? We had our good years, we had our bad years. We had 2008, the economic world was crashing.
Right.
I mean, there were so many challenges, and my business, I invested in such a way that um, basically I didn't take a lot of dividends. I plowed the money back in, and
Right.
I acquired 7 companies while I owned that company,
That's
and that's
amazing.
how I grew it too. So that was a lot of work, a lot of cash. So we lived a fairly upper middle class, modest
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle, but the business was growing
Right.
and was doing well. Then, as the kids started to leave for college and high school, and they needed her less, she was working in the business,
Right.
she did things like the newsletter. So we had a career where, hey, you stay over there, do your thing. I'm going
R-
to run the company. Don't worry
Right.
about it. Let's not talk too much about business because it's just friction,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
As the kids grew and went to college, she felt a little empty. And then when I sold the business, I felt a little empty, and we lost our way for a bit.
Right.
So we
Right.
had to refine that way. And that's when we learned about 5 love
Love
languages.
languages.
And I know it's important for me to reach out and touch her,
Right.
right? Which is
100%.
not my inclination just to do, right?
Right.
Because that's not one of my love languages,
Mm-hmm.
but I got to understand hers.
100%.
And so quality time is really important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be intentional on that time. Like this morning, I said, hey, I don't have a lot of time. Come down, let's have our coffee, even if it's for 25
5
minutes
minutes.
together before I ran out and started my day.
Right.
It was still quality time. And I know we'll have quality time together tonight. And so I think the important thing is don't give up. And I give her all the credit because she is stubbornly committed
Mm-hmm.
to the relationship, and I love her for that.
Yeah.
She is a bulldog on it. She will not give up on a relationship, and that has helped me,
Right.
right?
100%. That's
And you
amazing.
need somebody stronger in relationships. Sometimes, uh, in a lot of ways, a different type of strength than you have. Like I
Right.
have that emotional balance. I don't fly off the handle. I'm very steady. She is all in. Her line to me is always, "I love you more," right? "Hey, I love
Right.
you. I love you more." And I'm like, "Damn it." And she goes, "What?" I said, "I can't top that because I know you do."
Yeah.
And it's not,
Yeah.
it's okay to say
Right.
and open yourself up and say, "Honey, I know you love me more.
Yeah.
I love you as much as I know how to love anybody,
Buddy. Right.
but
Right.
she just loves me more." And so you hate to compare the intensity of love toward one
Right.
another,
Right.
but there's never even,
No, no, no.
right?
Yeah.
So somebody always loves somebody a
And
little more.
at different times too. Like it seems like you've leaned in probably to the relationship more at times than she has, and then
Mhm.
she's leaning back in. But I do want to say, like, having that one person that isn't willing to give up on it really helps with staying together. Like David
Yes.
and I could have easily just ended and walked out and things like that. But I was truly committed. Like I really looked through everything that would happen because I truly loved him like
Mhm.
so, so much. And at the end of the day, I'm kind of like that bulldog where I wasn't willing to give up either, which is super, super important as well. So when people are married and you have people that are running businesses like yourself and I,
Mhm.
what would be something that you would tell the people that are running the businesses to do or consider with
boy.
their spouses? Because we do get caught up into the business where
Oh.
my company became my life. It was my passion. If it was like, hey, music compounds have an event or it's like a family function, I'm like, music compound all the way. It was so rewarding. I wasn't even getting paid
Mhm.
for it. But I think sometimes we get sucked into it and they don't understand the passion or they don't understand the
Right.
vision or they don't understand you're going to benefit from this all in the long
Yeah.
term. Like, so let's share some great information with people
Okay.
that are listening that maybe are married to someone like us
Yep.
that where we could provide some great insight from our point of view. And then maybe we can share some from our spouse's point of view too.
That's a really poignant question because it's a postmortem on when we had our challenges, when we both kind of lost our purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I used to say to people, I said, I'm like Captain Kirk. Captain
Mm-hmm.
Kirk used to say, "The Enterprise is my love," right?
Right.
And Cool Today was my enterprise,
Right.
right? So I was all in on the enterprise. And Julie understood because she was all in on the kids.
Right.
And it was her passion too, Cool Today. And when she was working there, she loved the people. And so you get so wrapped up in that. And honestly, other than doing events together, which she didn't really care for, by the way, she had
Mm-hmm.
some fun when we brought friends to big events. We brought
Right.
tables and galas and stuff like that. we did not really have that quality time date night. And she didn't really require or need it or want it
Right.
because her life was all about the kids.
Right. Right.
If the kids needed something, she dropped work and went and saw them, did them. She was the epitome of a mom,
Okay.
right?
Right.
That was her first love,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of course, we loved each other, but we had these commitments, right? And then what absorbs all that time, that quality time? For me, it was work. For her, it was the kids.
Right.
Somehow I played a role in there too.
Right,
I
of course.
was there nights and weekends. I was
And financially providing so that they could do all the things.
Financially providing.
But date nights don't actually happen, or they're not planned.
They're not intentional. You have to make date nights intentional. And I know everybody hears about date night. I'm going on record to say right now, that's one of the things that we did not do well enough. Right. And when you're married with kids, date night, plan dates, plan sex, love making, if you will. You don't have to be sex. We love making.
Right.
And I'm saying that from a guy's point of view, and most girls say, of course you're saying that because you're
I would say the same thing as a woman.
Okay.
My counselor said, we need to plan sex dates. Yeah. I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, you have to put sex date on the calendars. Otherwise it won't happen. And you need to go out to dinner and, flirt with each other and have fun and give each other looks. And that's going to get you into the bedroom. And we never planned it either. So I'm glad that you're mentioning this.
The human species is very odd to me
mm-hmm.
because when you're courting, you're not in love with the person, but the quality time, the sex time, the commitment, the holding, all that stuff is through the roof.
Right.
Then you actually fall in love with this person, and it might maintain for a period of time. And then you fall deeper in love, deeper in love, deeper in love.
Right.
And then that starts to fade.
Right.
Why does it start to fade? And I thought about this. I said, because distractions in life take you away from the focus.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many distractions.
So many distractions.
In our lives.
And there's constantly just coming out of the woodwork. And they're right in front of us too.
And when I was in Peru, I realized that even more because I thought these people are not distracted.
Right. They're present.
They're farming. Their kids are with them. I mean, the lady who was making my bracelet was breastfeeding at the same time. It was a little uncomfortable for me, but she was very focused on that. Right?
Okay.
They're focused on surviving. Right? They don't have phones in their hands. They don't have computers. They were heating up logs to cook their meal. They were collecting their meal from the vegetables from the fields. They're going up to walking 4 hours to the llamas to shave them so that they can make blankets.
Right, right.
So in their lives, if you think about it, with their spouses, there's that, the kids, and it's each other. And there's no laying in bed with your back toward each other on the phone.
Right. Or Netflix or on the computer and I feel like we all work all the time too. Like the first thing that we do, well, I don't do this anymore, was like open up email and like go right into that instead of saying, hey, let's go for the walk. Let's go spend the quality time together first and foremost. Did you guys ever travel in those years of startup and like growing and acquiring the business?
But we did travel for business conventions.
Okay.
She enjoyed that.
Yeah.
She enjoyed that probably more than, actually having to pay for it.
Yeah, of course.
Because it felt like the business paid for everything. But yeah, we did some traveling. We have like albums of the things we've done. It's just I've gotten to the stage in life and maybe I wasn't clear with her on this, which is another mistake, was part of my 20-year plan in retirement is, and I did tell her. I did tell her.
We're going to go on record and say, we told you.
I used to say, I'm going to people say, are you going to travel when you retire? I said, yes. She said, no. I said, no, I'm dragging you all over the planet. That should be my line. I'm dragging you all over the planet. Because I have this propensity to want to see the world because I grew up, I love watching the History Channel and AMC, and I love old movies and history, I'm a history buff.
Right.
Which means I want to see what I've read about and seen. So,
college.
So I guess the long answer is invest in the date nights,
the
secluded time together. Don't overindulge in your Captain Kirk's and your love of ship and love of kids. Listen, the kids know they love you. Right.
100%.
And if that's the only thing that drives wedges in between spouses.
Right. Yeah. David and I never traveled. Like he was always like, we have to have so much money in the savings. And I was like, let's just take 3 days. And he's like, I'm only going to go on vacation if it's like a week. I'm like, we never took time to travel. And like traveling has been really great for us because it's connected us. There's not the distractions. We get to focus because his quality time, his personal touch too. But he just likes to snuggle and hold hands. Like just really simple personal touch. It's not even like sexual when it comes to personal touch from like a man's perspective too. So, so I think that has helped us with our relationship. And I wish we would have taken more time earlier in the stages to pull me out as well of my business, because then I would have probably had fresher ideas. I probably would have came in stronger. There's so many things that I learned through just being completely obsessed with work and forgetting that I was married and that I had a partner.
I had the
So
means to travel. It's just my wife did not want to leave the kids.
yeah,
And
a lot of moms don't.
We didn't have a support system here.
Right.
So we couldn't leave them for a week.
Right.
Her sister lives on the East Coast. My family was all over. So we didn't have like family here.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge as well.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking about family, I want to talk about employees, because I know that your organization and the way that you ran your company was very much family oriented. Taking care of people was your motto. And I would love to inspire the listeners today to be a leader like you, and the importance of taking care of your people and how that impacts the community and everything else. So if you could think of some tips and some tools or some philosophy to share with anyone that manages anyone, whether they own the business or they're a middle manager or they're a leader or executive, what would be some great advice to take care of their employees?
How many books have been written about this, huh? And what can I say that people say, oh, that sounds, I've heard that, I've heard that, I've heard that.
Maybe they need to hear it again, though.
Yeah. Okay. And I used to say this to my team members when I used to talk to them a lot. Okay, so like a relationship, I'm going to move it to work. Communicate often.
Right.
Don't think people know what you're thinking about just because you mention stuff to them. You have to sit down with them as a group and share, here's the 1-year plan, here's the 5-year plan, here's the 10-year plan, here's how it will all benefit from it. I know I'll benefit the most, but I'm also risking the most, right?
Of course, yeah.
So I speak plainly to them. Speak plainly to them, communicate with them. Very important. Also, try to understand and listen to understand, not to respond. We tend as bosses, listen and then we're already plotting our canned reply. But not every need is the same. So listen to understand. Empathize, which is a big deal.
Right.
Reward, but bless them with accountability.
Right.
This is what's the lost art.
Right.
In the last 20 years, because the labor markets have gotten tighter, all of a sudden, holding people accountable has taken a backseat. There is no such thing as top grading. There is no such thing as the Jack Welch method of getting rid of your bottom 10%, because guess what? We can't replace the bottom 10%. People feel better in healthy organizations that hold everyone accountable and hold each other accountable, because that is more like a family. Because families hold each other accountable to a fault.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So they're used to that. Now, maybe not the modern helicopter parents aren't as good at that, right? Everybody gets to participate. Maybe that's a challenge in our society. But I'm telling you, a lot of the people who are younger, and I'm talking the Gen Z, Gen Y, want to be held accountable respectfully,
right,
openly, communicate, and they want to learn from it. So communicate, share, right?
Right.
Share your vision, reward, hold accountable, do those things, and just show them you care.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing that people were pretty impressed with is the fact that I kind of knew who they were married to, and I kind of knew how many kids they had, and sometimes knew the name of their kids. And that was up to 175 employees. Right?
Wow.
And I was intentional in understanding who they are, where they're from, and who are the people, their stakeholders in their lives.
Right, right.
And, you know, you're not there to run a business, and employees, I wrote this on LinkedIn the other day.
Okay.
Right? If you treat employees like just an asset, they will depreciate. They have to be your greatest human asset.
Right.
That need constant development, investment, training, rewarding, and emotional support. If you just treat them like an asset,
yeah,
they will depreciate.
Well, what you're speaking is like directly to me right now, because I've been struggling with a lot of the growth and then like my employees as well. And I just went to a conference, and, you know, before I went to conference, I was like, I was going to fire like half my leadership team, because I was just like, they're not forward thinking. They're not growth oriented. They're just kind of just hanging out. And what I learned is that it's all stemming from me. I wasn't giving them that vision. I was creating my future vision, but I wasn't creating vision that included them as far as the company was concerned.
Mm.
And so they were just lost. So first of all, I had to take a lot of ownership. And then they were talking about retention and like the pool of people and how hard it is to replace people. They're like, renovate your team, renovate your company before you just cut people off, because there's not a lot of people standing in line to take their place.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back with just a fresh outlook on how to hold these people accountable, train them, share the vision, and communicate really what I'm needing. Accountability was one of my words for this year. And I remember being at the CEO forum and I was like, oh, accountability. And he was like, that's the worst word you could have for the team. And I was like, I don't hold these people accountable. How are we going to go to the next level? And you're right. These people do want to be held accountable. They want me to actually have meetings with them so they can check off the boxes and I can see that they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I wasn't following up. So people are so important to the organization. I will say that I have been struggling with them, but I love that you're saying if you treat them like an asset, they'll depreciate. And essentially, you're not going to want them and they're not going to be there providing a great quality service and your clients aren't going to be very happy.
That's right.
So,
and in our business, we are you're pure service businesses.
100%.
And so the clients get the sense of the employees' feeling of the company through their service every day.
Yeah. So how are you motivating these employees to take ownership and become more emotional aware and to take kind of ownership of their future? I mean, I feel like, yes, I can share the vision and yes, I can say, hey, here's some really great opportunities for you, but the buy-in where they take ownership.
Growth. With growth, there's great opportunity. With no growth, there's no opportunity. Right. And we're traditional in the air conditioning, mom and pop. We were one of the original mom and pop businesses, right? It used to be the mother, the father, the son, the uncle, the cousin.
Right.
And it was considered when I was young, I was going to say, I'm not getting an air conditioning business. There's nowhere to go.
Right.
But if you have a business like yours, like the air conditioning business, which is a $100 billion business, growth is the opportunity, right? For those who want to grow and want more responsibility and headaches in their lives, growing. Otherwise, you got to pay at the top scale. I'm talking the top 10%. And they have to feel like they get their emotional reward. They get the mentally, they're in a great place. They love the work family they have.
Right.
And the financial reward is just the cream of the crop, right? So, they used to say, well, thank you for paying for a Christmas party. I said, I didn't pay for anything. Our customers paid for it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because they pay for everything.
100%.
Your clients pay for everything.
Yeah.
So if you need to upgrade your people, you have to raise your prices. Your clients have to pay for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a challenge for small business because they always feel squeezed.
Yeah, that's how we feel. But speaking of the grow, that another thing Ellen was talking about at that conference too was either grow or go. If they're not willing to grow, they need to go. And that can be really challenging too when you're thinking, oh, I'm going to renovate. I'm going to try to help these people. And I know as a leader, it requires so much energy from me as well. And I'm sure as you to help these people with their emotional state. So we now give allowance for like counseling and things like that because I want to kind of step from being so much of a counselor. But what's your take? Like how involved were you with like contributing to their emotional health of the employees?
Well, we had all those programs for them.
Yeah.
And I was very much in touch, and my HR person with what's going on. And if somebody's struggling, I talk to them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was loaning some money to them to get them over a tough time, which creating a lot of pressure in their relationship.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was really just time off.
Right.
And I used to tick my managers off because I would make decisions. And I would kindly say to them, I said, listen, it's executive privilege sometimes.
Okay.
I know it's not. I was always a believer in this rule of management. I don't treat people equally. I treat people fairly.
Okay.
There's a big difference.
Break that down for me.
You can't remember that?
I mean, I kind of do, but
equality is not the same as fairness in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a subpar performer and they need something and they need it over and over again, I didn't really lean into that as opposed to somebody who was excelling and they supported the team and they were integral. And you have a complainer that constantly needs something. So I didn't treat them the same. And I got called out on it. And I said, here's my philosophy. And I was clear on my philosophy.
Yeah.
So if everybody understood it, they knew the rules of the game.
Right. I'm dealing with that right now. I've had a couple of employees come to me and they're like, well, you're different now, or you're not stroking me like you used to stroke me and things like that, where it's I guess I'm stroking this person more than I'm stroking this person, and they can see the difference. But that person's invested more, or they're showing up differently, or how they're like representing themselves when they come to work, and how they're engaging with clients is way different than the other people. Some of the people are just becoming very content. So what would be your advice to me with these individuals that work for me, that some of them are just becoming stagnant because they've been there for so long, or maybe the lack of vision compared to the new people that I'm bringing on? Like, what would be your advice on like how to not play favoritism to the new people and still care for the other people, but not create competition and like where there's like favoritism?
Is it favoritism?
It's not favoritism. I'm just,
They think it's favoritism.
they think it's favoritism,
So
even though for me, I'm
you
like,
have to codify what favoritism is, right?
mhm,
Because you're stroking somebody because they're actually doing something who
yeah,
deserve accolades.
yeah,
That's like, did Tom Brady get stroked a lot as quarterback of the New England Patriots?
yeah,
Okay, you think his coach stroked him a lot? You think the lineman who got holding called on him 3 times in a game was upset Tom Brady was getting stroked and he wasn't?
right, yeah,
So we're in this big game together. We're on a
mhm,
team,
right,
right? You have star players, you have good players, you have average players, and you have players that need some help. If you're giving them the tools to get better
mhm,
and they're leaning in, that's when you stroke them. If they're giving the tools to get better and they're just happy and content where they're at in a straight line,
yeah,
well, you don't stroke them.
right,
It's better than being disciplined about it,
right,
but
right,
maybe that's what they need.
yeah. Well, we all need a lot. And I feel like people need more today than like they did a year ago, 2 years ago, three
I've
years
heard that.
ago. And I feel, for me personally, I just feel like I'm working harder, and I just feel like the way you have to run a business and how you have to manage people, and then the client expectations, and now you're having to charge so much more for a service, but your
Mhm.
people cost more. I just feel like it's super challenging right now as a business owner.
It is, but I'm not sure if it's any different. Well, okay, I'm not sure if it's a different challenge, it's just different situation.
Yeah.
Everybody says, "Hey, it's different." Well, shoot, I mean, in my business, the skilled trades, how many people were dying to be a plumber 25 years ago?
Right.
None,
Right.
right? Everybody wanted to go to college,
Right.
well, I'm not getting any help from the high school counselors, I'm not getting help from parents. Parents were like, "My son's not gonna be a plumber," right?
Right. Right. It was
They
like dirty, or it's like bad,
eh,
or it's like
they they
they're going
don't
to,
want but yet when they need the service, they have to pay for it, and so we've been in a very constricted labor pool in my business
right.
a lot longer than you guys have, really, since COVID,
Right.
right? So you're
Yeah.
experiencing what we experienced for years. The challenge becomes is if you don't take the best from the pool you got, a pool available,
Right.
you will never be better than the other company pulling from the same pool.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about hiring the A players. Have you read the book Who?
Yes,
Okay, I just read that book this past year as well. I'm trying to read a book a month, is
that's a lot.
essentially, I know. But it gets me off of online. It gets me off scrolling as well. So it's a distraction, but a distraction that's going to help me in the company. And I learned all about the scorecards and all about hiring the A players. And I actually went to my leadership team and I was like, oh, I'm going to hire these A players and they're going to have this, this, and this. And one of them came to me. He's like, I was really offended by that. He's like, if you were going to only hire that way, I would have never been hired to work here. And I was like, I'm just changing our philosophy a little bit. I'm still going to hire for personality. I'm still going to hire for buy into the vision. I can train everybody to become music teachers. But at the same time, I just want a higher level of teachers that are coming in. Anyways, I thought it was really weird that he was offended by it.
Well, it's interesting. You create a culture, and cultures are created, right?
Yeah.
You put a bunch of people together, working together. A culture's created. The leader sets the tone, direction of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, you had a certain tone and direction, and the
100%.
people gravitated to that,
Yeah.
and that's how you grew the music compound. But now you're adjusting the culture a little bit. You're not adjusting the tone of the culture, just content. Well, the people that are comfortable in that culture
Yeah.
are going to get very uncomfortable with anything that has change relation to that culture.
100%. Yeah.
So if you're going to do that, if you're doing it unintentionally, you have to rethink it. And if you're going to
Right.
do it intentionally, you have to communicate the why.
Right.
You talked about the who,
Yeah.
the why. Why
100%.
why am I looking for A players and looking at that? Guys, it's a tough market.
Yeah.
If we hire more A players, we'll need fewer B players or C players.
100%. And I think it's just a way to elevate everybody that's within our organization.
People with insecurities that think they could never be them.
Which is because they don't believe in themselves.
They have to stroke themselves.
Did
they read this book here called Stroke It?
They have not. They have not read this book. I even told them, I was like, read the employer and the employee section first and foremost, because some of them manage people and there's really great tips in there. And then obviously I want them to read the yourself chapter. But once again, at one of the calls, I'm on a lot of masterminds and they're like, just start bringing books into the conversations and encourage them and read together or come up with phrases, because a lot of them won't listen to podcasts or they won't listen to audibles or they're just not in that self-development, but they're educators. So I've got to somehow inspire and connect with them where they want to continue learning so that they can be the best version of themselves, which is challenging as a leader sometimes. So
absolutely, because it's an investment.
So before we wrap up, if there was anything that you didn't mention or you think would be super, super beneficial for our listeners to elevate themselves to where they can be a better leader, they can be a better person for themselves or a better spouse, what would be your one takeaway that they could do to focus on themselves first?
Always look at yourself and say, and be self-aware. I'm going to use that word again. Be self-aware of the things you know you lack and you could be better at.
Okay. And do you have a motto or any books or any podcast or anything that you listen to or anything you've recently read that could be really beneficial to help them with becoming more self-aware or working on their weaknesses?
Self-help, it's business.
Yeah. Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is a great book. I learned a lot through that and through this, because I was not emotionally aware. I wasn't even self-aware. I was not aware that I was talking all the time and I wasn't listening with intention. And there's so many things that I've learned in the last couple of years becoming self-aware.
Well, you're still developing.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. You've been at the music compound how long? 8 years?
So I'm going to be entering my 10th year in January, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah. I'll ask you off camera about the 3, 5, 10. How are you doing with that?
It's changed.
I know it's changed, but okay. So you're 10 years and you're still spending time reading. That is developing, right? And never stop learning. When you stop learning, you stop growing. When you stop growing, you die. So keep learning, keep developing. Try not to repeat mistakes.
Yeah.
That's a human condition that really is frustrating, right?
Yeah, 100%.
We'll do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. It's interesting.
Yeah.
People do that. I'm guilty as charged in my past.
Right.
So
I hear
I'm
you.
coaching some people that are doing that in their businesses, and I'm trying not to get frustrated.
Coaching people can be really frustrating at times.
If you care about what you do, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Thank you for the conversation. I really appreciate it. And all your mentorship and your time for being here today, because I know you're so busy and you're traveling and you're working and you're part of all these boards and making a huge impact. So thank you for spending the afternoon with me.
You know what financial freedom is? I got a new definition for it.
Oh, tell me.
It's the opportunity to say no to anything except your wife. That's financial freedom.
My husband's going to love that. I'll just replace wife with husband.
Yeah, there you go.
So I tell him all the time, because he's always like, we need to do this. And he's wants to just be like so rich and all these things. And I said, honey, we are rich. We don't have like millions of dollars in the bank, but I get to wake up every day and do what I want every single day. I get to decide if I'm going to go for a walk. I get to decide if I'm going to go and have breakfast with you, or I'm going to just get up and go to work. Like, to me, that's financial freedom. And the fact that, like, if I wanted anything, I could go and buy it. I don't need to. I don't want to necessarily.
Say no to the business when they need you.
Yes, I know. And I love my business.
That's what I don't have to worry about anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I look forward to becoming you in the very near future.
Oh, you're on your way.
So anyways, well, thank you so much for tuning in to the Stroke It podcast. Once again, we want to say thank you. And we want to encourage you to send this to 5 of your friends that you think could benefit or maybe would learn something from Jamie or I today. If you're thinking about starting your business, we want to encourage you to do that. Follow your passions. We're both huge believers in following your passion and making that your life. You'll never work a day. Well, you will, but you'll enjoy it every single day. You'll have that financial freedom as well. And we always want to encourage you to give a 5-star review. Thank you so much for tuning in, and cheers. Thank you for tuning into the Stroke It podcast. I hope you were inspired. I hope you're willing and ready to take some action. I want to encourage you to consider 5 people that could benefit from today's podcast. It's super simple to share this episode. You never know who could benefit from hearing this podcast and how you could inspire them to create the change in the life that they're wanting. Cheers, and thank you so much for tuning in. Also, consider giving a review.